Welcome to this week's edition of Bowl Season Stories. I'm Nick Carparelli, the Executive Director of Bowl Season, and each week, different guests from the world of college football join me to talk about current topics in the sport, as well as discuss what they remember most about their bowl game experiences. Today, we are joined by ACC Network studio analyst and former Clemson Tiger Derrick Mac Lain, former USC Trojan and NFL linebacker Brian Cushing, and Valero Alamo Bowl Executive Director Derrick Fox. All of today's guests are brought to you by Prolific One, next level insight, seat by seat. Also joining me, as she does each week, is our on-air producer, Angela Lang. Hello, Angela.
Hi, Nick. How are you doing? Going into week 8.
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying every weekend of college football. It seems like it's more popular this year than ever, which is hard to imagine. But I'm really excited about today's show. We are packed with great guests. I don't know how we're going to have enough time for all of them.
Yeah, I think it's really cool too with our first guest, Derrick Mac Lain, who, as you mentioned, an analyst for the ACC Network. He has a podcast of his own, Gramlich and Mac Lain, where they break down ACC football, and he definitely knows a lot about ACC football, being a former Clemson Tiger on the offensive line from 2011 to 2015. Derrick, so glad to have you on the show. Welcome in.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me. Nick, as you said, crazy season that has a lot of people's attention. People are jacked up and excited for football, and we all know what that means. Bowl season is going to be even more nuts. And so super excited to be with you guys today.
Well, thanks for joining us. Derrick, you have a unique perspective. You talk about college football as a living, and you obviously played at Clemson from 2011 to 15. You won 46 games in your career. That's amazing. Captured 2 conference championships, made a national championship appearance, played in, I thought it was 2 Orange Bowls. You said 3.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A Bowl, Russell Athletic Bowl, and obviously the national championship. Pretty good career. Tell us about those bowl game experiences. Are there any that stick out to you as being more memorable than the other?
Yeah, so 3 Orange Bowls is nuts. So the third one, the first one was my redshirt freshman year. So didn't necessarily play, but got to have the experience and got to do the whole song and dance. And it was really cool to see the, just evolution of that bowl game and how it changed from 2011 to 2015 when we played in it as a college football playoff, as one of the, early matchups before the national championship. And, there's so many memories. I am such a big proponent of the bowl season, of the opportunity that it provides. Us young folk as football players, not only to go and see maybe a different destination or a different place to play against a team that we maybe never would have played against, but also just the connection with that community that we go to. I mean, we visited hospitals, we did community service events, going to see, young people who, maybe aren't having the best of time in a hospital, that hopefully we bring a little smile, a little joy to their face for a couple of hours. That was always my favorite thing. And then just getting out in the community as well, doing different signing things or photographs or other community service. I know one year around Christmas time, we did a little bit of a toy drive when we were in Orlando for the Russell Athletic Bowl. So that was it was a lot of fun. And it's so meaningful, to just give back to those communities that host these bowl games. And then there's a lot of fun involved too, right? We're down there for a good time. We're down there for 5-6 days. So many team events. I remember when we were in Miami, we would go to, an all-you-can-eat kind of meat palace, if you will. And, the offensive line eating thousands of these different things and just cleaning them out or going to theme parks or other fun events that the bowl had. So we were always grateful, super grateful for the extra opportunity, for the extra coverage, and then, just the fun time that we had as a team in the postseason.
Yeah, those are the stories, Derrick, that the fan doesn't realize. They turn the TV on during bowl season, they watch another football game for 3 hours, but you guys are in town for 5-6 days, enjoying each other, enjoying teammates. And it's funny you mentioned a steak eating competition. You guys are also competitive. It's not limited to the playing field. When it comes to eating, I think you guys might be more competitive than you are on the football field.
No question about it, man. And it was funny when we played LSU, they actually kept track of it. And I can't remember it. It might have been like 800 to 900. And I think they got us by just a little bit, but it was so funny to see that. And when we got wind of it, we're like, oh guys, we got to keep going. We got to do this thing. So it's so much fun. The competition within the competition. And then really another part that I failed to mention was, the media availability, and especially the bigger bowls that you go to, and especially the playoff. I mean, it is such a unique experience for everybody on the team, for folks that, maybe aren't used to having a camera in their face, maybe not used to having a microphone there, that now they get that opportunity because it's just open season. You go into a room and any reporter can walk up to you. And so I really appreciated that because, as I won't say star player, but as a leader of the team, I was always the one tasked with that. So now when we got to a place where there was just more opportunity for others to get involved, it was just cool to see. And the stories that you would never know unless you talk to some of those guys. So all in all, bowl season, it presents so many fun opportunities for everybody involved. It's really a cool thing to have.
Now, speaking about being in front of the camera, you've transitioned into a new career as a studio analyst for the ACC Network. Tell us about that transition and how you're enjoying the job.
Yeah, man, it's really been a blessing. I mean, just to continue to be around the game of football in a new way, to be talking about it, analyzing it with some of the best in the business. EJ Manuel, quarterback at FSU, had many battles with him on the football field. Coach Mark Richt actually played against him twice in college. So it's funny how we have all now come together and are on TV on the ACC Network doing the huddle. But it's just a privilege to continue to talk about this great sport that changes so many people's lives, and to be able to cover it with a company as great as ESPN. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope it doesn't end anytime soon.
Let's talk about this season a little bit. Obviously here at bowl season, we track the number of teams that get their sixth win and are bowl eligible. We have 17 teams thus far that have 6 wins and punch their ticket to bowl season. 22 teams have 5 wins, and 20 of them are playing this weekend, looking to do the same. Not too many are in the ACC in that group just yet. Now, you played in the ACC. Now it's your job to talk about the conference on the ACC Network. Some people would say, and I've debated this back in my days in the conference office, some would say the conference is down because there's no team contending for the playoff. Others might say the league is really strong, a lot of good teams, and they're just beating each other up. Talk about the ACC for a minute. Give us your thoughts on how that and how the conference might shake out this year once the season is over.
Yeah, well, I think it's easy to say the league is down because Clemson is down. I mean, they kind of drive the train. If Alabama was down, we'd probably sit here and say that the SEC was down. If Oklahoma was, we'd say the same thing for the Big 12. So when you have that driver's seat that isn't doing their end of the bargain, quote unquote, that's a simple thing to say. But when I'm looking at the records of these teams playing this weekend, 4-2, 5-1, 6-0, 4-2, 5-1, 5-2. There's a lot of solid teams that are playing right now that are going to be bowl eligible after this weekend. And so that number is going to increase dramatically for the ACC this weekend alone. And I think we're seeing a team like Pittsburgh that is playing at a very high level. They welcome the Tigers to the Steel City for the first time ever. What a fun matchup that's going to be. Wake Forest going to Army. I think that's a little bit of a sneaky game that is going to get some people's attention very early. Army has played extremely well against Power 5 teams in their last matchups. And then you have NC State that I think is playing at a really high level right now. Very complimentary football. That's just a lot of fun to watch. So those are really the 3 ranked teams in the conference that I think will have a shot to really make some noise and to get into those New Year's 6 type of bowls. And maybe even a playoff. If Wake Forest runs the table, I don't think there's any question that an undefeated ACC champion is going to be in this thing. So it's going to be fun to see how it all, really just unfolds and the fun matchups that we're going to get. I mean, you talk about some of the mid-level bowls and specifically like the Duke's Mayo in Charlotte. I mean, that bowl right now is on track to have some really big brand name teams in that game. So postseason is going to be a lot of fun.
It is for sure. Let's look at the national level a little bit. As much as you'd love Clemson to be in that title hunt every year, some people would say it's good for the sport to have kind of a new mix of teams, right? Alabama's got a loss. Georgia's at the top. Iowa was in and out of that top 4. Cincinnati might be that first group of 5 team to crack the playoff. Any predictions on how those final 4 teams that make the playoff might shake out?
Yeah, man, Georgia just they look like a different team. They look unstoppable. And of course, Clemson got to see them up close and personal. What a defensive battle that was. It was actually a defensive touchdown that ended up winning that game, and just how different would we be looking at this college football season if Clemson was able to be on the other end of that defensive touchdown and maybe they score one? What do things look like? But, really, I think, as you said there, the first real opportunity for a G5 team to crack this playoff is going to be really exciting to see. Cincinnati, I was interested to see how they played a week ago, finally being in the top 4 at number 3, and they played lights out. They have another opportunity to do so against Navy this week. And I mean, they're number 2 in the country, the highest they've ever been rated. What are they going to look like? But, when you look at the grand scheme of things, I think the Big Ten is really the strongest conference as of right now. They might sneak in a couple of people into this playoff. So it's going to be crazy how it shakes up. I never think you can count Alabama out, especially with only one loss. Those guys are going to be focused and really ramped up. When you look at Nick Saban's history, I believe he's only had 2 undefeated national champions out of like the 100 that he's won. So this guy's used to not being undefeated, used to running the table when he needs to. And it's going to really shake out to be very interesting who's in that final grouping.
Well, Eric, we know you're busy. Thanks so much for joining us. We really enjoy listening to you on the ACC network. I have a feeling we're going to be listening to you on the air for a long, long time. Good luck to you. Thanks again.
Hey, brother. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys having me, and good luck the rest of the season.
We're going to take a short break and be right back with former USC Trojan and NFL linebacker Brian Cushing. Stay with us.
The first goal of every college football team at the beginning of the season is to win 6 games and qualify for a bowl game. They've punched their ticket and now are officially bowl bound. We're very excited to announce a new tradition with official bowl season gear given out in the locker room moments after winning that 6th game. T-shirts that celebrate the achievement. Fans can join the celebration by going online to bowlseason.com, where they can order their own bowl-bound T-shirt. Bowl season is a celebration of college football, so celebrate with your team when they become bowl eligible.
Welcome back to Bowl Season Stories. Our next guest is former USC Trojan Brian Cushing. Brian played for the Trojans from 2005 to 2008, was drafted by the Houston Texans in the first round of the 2009 NFL Draft, and played his entire 9-year NFL career in Houston, retiring in 2017 as the team's all-time leading tackler. Brian, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you guys having me.
Now, you played on some great USC teams back in the mid-2000s. In fact, in your 4 years playing there, you went to 4 Rose Bowl games, which is pretty amazing in and of itself. But you were also a starter in all 4. You're one of only 2 players ever to do that, along with Ohio State's Archie Griffin. Do you ever think about that, how unlikely that is to happen and how special that is?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that you don't really know about until obviously after it happens. It was kind of an interesting experience going to the Rose Bowl all 4 years. Played a national championship once there, and then the actual Rose Bowl game 3 times there. So we knew the venue well. It was a very familiar experience, and just be able to play in that stadium, which is honestly my all-time favorite stadium, college or NFL of all time. It's just very, very unique experience to play there, and very fortunate enough to play there 4 times, plus the other times we were able to play against UCLA there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about that stadium. As a fan, first time I walked in, I told people that I kind of felt the building when I walked in. I don't know how else to describe it, but just the history of it. Now, you went 3-1 in those Rose Bowl games. I hate to bring up the one you lost, but that was the national championship game against Texas. And the only reason I bring it up is it's considered by many to be one of the greatest bowl games ever. What do you remember about that game?
Yeah, it's one of the greatest bowl games ever. If you were on the Texas sideline, I have to agree with you. No, but it was an incredible experience to be a part of that. I just remember running. So that was the first time we had played UCLA at the Coliseum the game before that. So there was my first time ever going to the Rose Bowl. And I just remember we're running out for the first time and actually seeing the field and seeing the stands were honestly maybe a little bit more orange than they were cardinal. And that was kind of an eye-opening experience to me, and seeing how well the Texas fans traveled, and obviously for the national championship. But I think it was like that till that time, it was all-time attendance. The stadium was completely packed, and it was there was an aura to it. It was just kind of one of those magical nights where, and as far as the game went, you talk about back and forth the entire game. Never know if we were going to win or lose until the final whistle was blown. It was just so intense, so back and forth, and it was definitely a learning experience to be a part of as a freshman, and watching, kind of the burnt orange ticker tape come down, and them celebrating. And I stayed there a little bit longer just to watch it, more in shock, I think, because I'd never thought that a team in 2005 could lose a football game to anybody. So it was something that I will never forget, for sure.
Now, the next year was pretty good to you, though. You were named defensive MVP of the 2007 Rose Bowl, 2.5 sacks. You forced a third quarter fumble that really changed the momentum of that game against Michigan. Do you consider that maybe one of the bigger highlights of your career?
I think so. It was just a all around tremendous game. Personally, as a team, coaching, I mean, we were just kind of firing on all cylinders, and we were angry we weren't in the national championship game. And that can kind of work both two ways for you. Either teams are kind of bitter and they don't play well, or either teams come out and they feel like they still have something to prove. And we did that day against a very good Michigan football team. I mean, the amount of guys on both sides that went to the NFL was just incredible. It was just stack lineup. And we came out, we played lights out. We had a great defensive game plan, and I was able to make a lot of plays. And a school that I was heavily considering going to in high school. So it was something for me to prove, and it was something for our team to prove. And it was an awesome game.
Now let's talk about the bowl game experience in general. It's typically your 5 or 6 day trip with your friends and your teammates. It's a reward for a successful season. Now we ask each of our guests this question. It's a little unique for you since you went to the same game each of your 4 years, and it's also located in your school's backyard, but it's still an opportunity to spend time with your teammates, maybe in a part of town that you wouldn't normally hang out. Tell us, do you have any personal bowl stories on or off the field that made the bowl experience more memorable for you?
There was a lot of different venues and things that we went to. Lowry's Beef Bowl, we'd go bowling. But the thing that I think I remember the most during the bowl prep was the practices. Because for me, it was a cool experience because, it's winter break, campus is kind of dead, and you're still there working, really, as the only sport and only students on campus. So for us, it was just kind of something to prove, and we were there for a reason. And it was, obviously we had a break from our academics at the time, so football was the only thing going on, and that was our sole focus. So being able to really hone in and attack a game plan for pretty much a month, by the end of it, you kind of want to kill each other because you've just been practicing against each other the whole time, and we were so competitive at the time. But also it was a bonding experience for us to come together and be able to practice that much and know we're playing the team that we've been game planning for that long was pretty special.
What was it about those USC teams that made you guys so good? You said something interesting a minute ago about the 2017. You thought you should be in the national championship game. You weren't, right? Mm-hmm. And teams could go, one of two ways. Your team chose to have a little chip on your shoulder and say, we're going to go out and prove we belonged.
Yeah.
That's pretty special. What was the key to that, your success in those 4 years as a team?
Yeah, that all started with our head coach. I mean, that all started with Pete. Coach Carroll was an incredible motivator. His sports psychology was just as good as it got. He always kept us motivated. There was never a dull moment. I always remember walking to every team meeting, never knowing truly what to expect. And it kept it fun. It kept it interesting. And the way he was able to control a room was just astonishing. How in a 10-second span, he can have us cracking up laughing. And then with the flip of a switch, dead serious, block back in on the game plan was wild. So it all started with him, and it trickled down through the assistant coaches, Ken Norton, Nick Holt, Todd McNair, just all these guys just reiterated his message so well, and they were all on the same page. It was the closest overall group of coaches and players that I had ever been associated with, and we truly loved playing together. I mean, every time we stepped on the field, it didn't matter who it was. We in our minds 100% thought we were better.
So what do you think is next for your alma mater? Any thoughts on who you'd like to see be the next head coach?
Man, there's some good options out there. All I know is that this next hire, we got to get it right. You know, because it's just been years of trying to copy that formula that we had, but it was so unique. I think someone's got to find their own way to do it, to get back to that level of success, but to personalize it themselves and do it a little bit different. Because I feel like we've tried to copy that blueprint over and over and over, but the guy that wrote it is going to be the best at doing it, right? So unless you get that guy back, it's going to be tough to replicate that. So I know there's a lot of good options out there. I know, in my opinion, there's not a better, no bias here, but no better job in college football to take that's open right now. So I figure like there should be a lot of people knocking at the door. I'm just hoping it's the right person that's chosen for it.
The last question for you, Brian. I just thought of this as I'm sitting here talking to you. You know, I look at you as a player and what I watched of you in college and the NFL, and you strike me as a little bit old school. You're no doubt a tough dude. You're focused. When you're playing football, it's all about the game. It's all about your teammates. There's no distractions, right?
Right.
It seems like maybe as a society, but definitely in college football, a lot of kids are getting away from that. You have the NIL issues, and some kids are focusing a little bit too much on their Instagram and how much money they're going to make. You have kids that are bailing on their school if things aren't going their way, and they're entering the transfer portal right away. I'd love to hear your thought process on that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic of what's going on in college football right now. I think the root of it is social media, in my honest opinion. I think when a kid hears from such a young age of how good he is, or he's the next so-and-so player, no matter how strong-minded you are, you start to believe it. And I'm so grateful we did not have that kind of social media and access when I was in school, because it did let us focus on football and school more than these kids can now. I think there's too many temptations, there's too many distractions, but I think the best coaches find a way, because it's clearly not going anywhere. It's going to be around. So I think it starts with the root of recruiting and finding out exactly not the players so much, but the person that you're recruiting, and how serious are they about the sport. Obviously there's going to be some 5-star guys out there that talent is through the roof and they're going to take a shot on him. But I think getting to really truly know the player first and how much the game means to him is what's going to separate one program from another. Because it's, at the end of the day, it's about the game being played on Saturdays, and what can you do production wise, health wise during that time. Because none of it else matters. So it just gets back to me recruiting the right guys, and continuing to reiterate your core beliefs and your morals and your team message throughout the entire year.
I couldn't agree with you more, Brian. I think 10 years from now, when people are telling stories about the most successful teams of the 2020s, obviously, as you said, talent is going to be a big factor, but I think it's going to be the teams that have the best group of guys who, you know, are working together, caring about one another, you know, are not selfish.
100%.
So, well, Brian, we've taken enough of your time. Thank you so much for being on the show. We'll give a shout out. Thanks to Pat Flynn, our mutual friend, for helping put us together here, and best of luck to you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. Appreciate it.
We're going to take a short break and be right back with Valero Alamo Bowl Executive Director Derrick Fox. Stay with us.
Thanks for listening to the Bowl Season Stories podcast, a celebration of college football that breaks down the moments, the memories, and the magic of college football. Be sure to check out Mic Drop, another podcast powered by Tony Fay PR. Mic Drop pulls back the curtain on the larger-than-life sports scene here in North Texas. From its iconic teams, state-of-the-art venues, and headline-grabbing owners and athletes, we cover it all. Download Mic Drop today.
As we do each week, we welcome to Bowl Season Stories an executive director of a bowl game to the podcast. This week, we are honored to welcome the Valero Alamo Bowl Executive Director, Derrick Fox. Derrick, welcome to the show.
Angela, great to be here. Thanks for having us on.
Hey, Derrick, how you doing today?
Doing great. I'm here with you, Nick.
Well, there's a lot of better places you could be than being here with me, but we appreciate you joining us. Now, you are the only executive director in the history of the Alamo Bowl game, a position you've held for almost 30 years. So clearly you're doing something right. When the first Alamo Bowl was played in 1992, there were only 18 bowl games total. Now there's 43. How have you seen the Alamo Bowl grow over those years, both in the community and amongst the other bowl games as part of bowl season?
Well, yeah, great question. You looked at, even then, we were the 18th bowl game out of 18. So we were last, right? In the pecking order. And at that time, people were like, are you kidding? Another bowl game? Here we are, 43 bowl or 44 bowls now. And it's a great opportunity and a season ending reward for student athletes. So there's never too many. It's a great thing and a great sport that we all celebrate at the end of the season. So looking forward to it. But, one of the interesting things I think back in those times, and we got more calls about being a bowling alley than we did about a bowl game, I think, when we first got started. So I guess to show the growth, we've gotten past that. Now people are calling about tickets and sponsorships and want to be a part of it. But like any organization, you had to prove your stripes. We got started, we were a minimum payout bowl. We had the last picks from the Pac-12 and the Southwest Conference at the time. And we were on New Year's Eve. So it's kind of like, all right, if you can overcome, the challenges of getting started in that environment, let's see what you guys can do. And we really tried to make this kind of our own winter fiesta. Those people familiar with San Antonio, 10, 11-day celebration in the spring every year. And we try to make this, all about being a part of San Antonio and kind of a family tradition. People have done that now. We see people, we're actually to the age now coming up on our 29th game where we're getting turnover now. Maybe the parents are having the kids take over the tickets and those type of things, but really seeing it grow from really the 18 out of 18 to really, you can say we're 7, 8 out of the bowl games currently, as far as, payout, TV ratings, selection rights, first teams after the CFP. So we really tried to grow our base of support, which is important because if you don't have that stability here locally, while it's important to have out of town fans, you got to grow your local support to really be able to grow your game.
Absolutely. We talk to bowl directors every week on this show, and engaging the community is near the top of their list of things they're trying to accomplish. And I don't know if there's a bowl that does it better than you guys. You've been committed to making an impact to higher education through team payouts and local sponsorships. Tell us a little bit about that commitment, some of the young people you've helped.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the natural extensions of what we do, obviously, people are talking about the money coming into San Antonio from an economic impact, which is tremendous, and the exposure is tremendous. But oftentimes people talk, well, a lot of the money was going back out. It's going to higher education, going to the teams that were participating, so not sticking here in the local community. But it does, obviously, from that perspective. So we really took that and said, all right, let's extend that. So the theme of higher education was very important. So we created really 2 scholarship programs. One where it's about $1 million, it is $1 million plus every year currently that we contribute. One on a local high school basis. So every high school in San Antonio is guaranteed to have at least one winner, $7,500 scholarship. And it's got a student athlete component. So they have to have at least one varsity athlete, one varsity letter, and try to be a well-rounded student, doing other things in the community, being very supportive. The second program that we have is with our 6 local universities, and that's more geared towards getting out, right? Those kids that are in school, maybe former student athletes now trying to get out into the real world, starting their careers, and hopefully we have them come back and volunteer for us over time as well. But it's fun to see both programs grow. We started off in 2000, I think, with $50,000. You can see now we're up to $1 million. So certainly growing that, and you see the number of people who are involved. Some do come back and get involved with us currently, but just great stories to see these kids go on, and we read the resumes and what's going on. I know I certainly couldn't compete for one of these scholarships in today's environment. So congratulations to them. We're proud of them.
One of the misconceptions people have about bowl games is that they happen in December, and it's all about that one day and nothing else happens the rest of the year. And nothing could be further from the truth. You've developed the Alamo Bowl's community festival of events into an annual event. I saw that it averages a total economic impact in excess of $45 million to the San Antonio community. Talk about that development and what steps you took to keep it growing over the years.
Absolutely. We touched on a little bit in the beginning about, trying to make this a festival, and it's similar to what Fiesta is here in San Antonio, getting people to be a part of this, part of the community year in and year out. independent of the teams. That's one of the things that's very important. Obviously, you want fan travel and those type of things built into it, but you got to have that sustainable support. But the local support in the community is very, very important to what we're doing. And we want to continue to grow that. So having events throughout the course of the year to make it more than a full-time, or more than the question you joke about, but we always say it's a full-time job. Yes. When we go out and speak, we really do a lot of other things throughout the course of the year. So we try to have events like our Pigskin Preview that kind of kicks off the college football season, have an ESPN talent come in, speak to our sponsors, go on to $1 million shootout golf event, to another golf tournament we have, to kick off lunch, and you name it. And then we'll have social activities. Matter of fact, we have a little axe throwing contest here next week for our group. So again, it's just a social interaction, get people together, all leading up to the bowl game. That is our pinnacle event. That's what we exist for. But we want to be well-rounded and being part of the community in many different ways too.
You mentioned ESPN. They've been a very valuable partner of the Alamo Bowl. What have they meant to the growth of your game?
Absolutely. They've been with us since day one. Well, technically, they actually weren't our first sponsor. We had Raycom. You can remember they go back in these days, Nick, from that perspective. And
yes,
you were also on the committee way back in the influence days where you had to be pre-certified about 1.5 years out. And then you came back in that last April before your first game to be certified. Well, lo and behold, and we were hosting those meetings here in San Antonio. We were notified by Raycom. Just kidding. We're not going to do it. So we had 1 week to find a new television partner. Fortunately, we got a hold of Dave Brown and said, "Hey, you got anything left in your budget for TV rights this year?" And 29 years later, here we are. So they've been with us since day one and really grown our game, and now put us in the position to annually be one of the marquee primetime games.
You've had Texas and TCU in the Alamo Bowl in 3 of the last 4 years, but you've also had Oklahoma State and Iowa State and Kansas State recently. What have you seen to be kind of the key impacts on ticket sales and the interest of San Antonio fans in seeing those teams come to town? And in addition, do you find that San Antonio gives you an advantage as a destination for those fans?
Absolutely. San Antonio is awesome. It's a tremendous tourism destination town, city built for fun. It kind of ironically, if you step back, Christmas to New Year's pre-bowl game was the slowest tourism week of the year. They actually drained the Riverwalk. And I remember when we first got here, it was like, no, we got to change that. We're trying to showcase our city, right? So we did. And now you have a chance to bring some 30,000 people into town every year. And one of the things we do from a team selection standpoint, yeah, you can watch TV, you can get a sense of, how the teams play, style of play, key players, and those type of things. But really the nuances are going up and talking to the fans and getting a sense of not all 9 and 3 teams are alike, right? Some of them are getting ready to fire a coach. Some of them had the best year in school history. So getting engaged in a sense of those fans each and every week, each and every year, because every year is different. Every fan is different. And this year is especially important. With COVID, people having a propensity to not travel last year. Hopefully that's turned around for this year, and really trying to get a sense of enthusiasm and excitement of where those fans are. Because keep in mind, those are the ones that are coming down to your community. And let's say they spend $120 for a ticket with us. That's the least expensive thing they're going to do, right? They're going to, get in the car, drive down. They're going to get in a flight. They're going to stay in the hotels. They're going to shop. They're going to go and enjoy the Riverwalk. So it's really important thing to try to get a gauge. And is there an exact science? Absolutely not. But you try to put together compelling matchups that will excite the fans to come to our community, which, by the way, is an awesome place to visit, and the local community who supports you every year, independent, to be excited about those matchups. Now, fortunately, we've also had some very competitive games, so that helps. So you try to draw all those things up and get the coaches to sign off on overtime ahead of time. That would be perfect.
Well, last question for you, Derrick. We are exactly halfway through the college football season, and there's been so many good games. I imagine you're expecting another great competitive matchup in this year's Alamo Bowl. Any predictions for this year's matchup? Or are you allowed to do that?
We'll go out on a limb and say it'll be a Pac-12 versus a Big 12 team, right? But we are fortunate. It's been great games, and how exciting has this year been? Every game you watch, fans in stands this year, lots of them full. No issues, as far as people coming out of the games with illnesses from that perspective. And the student athletes got to really love playing in front of fans again. So that's so fun, so exciting. And there's nothing better than college football. And the postseason is the best, as you know.
No doubt about it. The Valero Alamo Bowl is scheduled for Wednesday, December 29th at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. The game will be broadcast on ESPN. Derrick, thank you so much for being on the show. Good luck this bowl season.
Great. Thanks for having us on. Have a great time.
And thank all of you for listening to this week's Bowl Season Stories podcast. Please join us next week when we will welcome another lineup of great guests. If you like the show, we'd appreciate you dropping a 5-star rating for the podcast. And as always, you can follow all the podcast and bowl season news on our website, bowlseason.com, and on social media at Bowl Season. Thanks for listening.